Do you fear death? Or perhaps is the dread in the very act of dying? Surely you have dedicated a moment to reflect on what happens after we depart. Will we ascend to the heavens? Will we be condemned to hell? Or maybe, after the body perishes, we go nowhere and simply cease to exist? In today's video, we are going to investigate the enigmas of mortality. This is the Facts Between Worlds channel. It's a pleasure to have you here. Subscribe so you don't miss more videos like this and help our work by leaving a like. This greatly strengthens the channel. Have you ever stopped to ponder what happens after we end life? Let's begin with a hypothetical scenario. Imagine you are there, calm, watching this material, and, unexpectedly, you suffer a cardiac arrest and pass away. How horrifying, right? Put that aside. That's not going to happen. But assuming that, suddenly, you end the cycle of life. This is an idea that deeply shakes humanity. Currently, society holds countless conceptions and hypotheses about the matter. Some people maintain that existence is unique. You die, it's over. Game over. All we have is our journey here on Earth, and it's essential to live in the present. Yet others think differently, believing that, in fact, there is something more after death. The biological end. Scientific perspective. Regardless of what happens in the afterlife, whether we move to another plane or not, let's start this video by scientifically addressing what happens to your body when life is gone. For the medical community, physical death is confirmed when the heart stops beating and no brain activity is registered anymore. The moment your heart stops, it interrupts the oxygen supply to the brain. Without this vital element, the brain stops generating electrical impulses, culminating in brain death. However, folks, there is a detail. Even after cardiac arrest, the brain only completely shuts down about 30 seconds later. That is, for half a minute, it is still registering operations. In this brief interval, the brain can, in theory, create an entire universe within itself. Individuals who have experienced near-death experiences, NDEs, report having witnessed scenes from another plane. Most report being conscious, seeing all their surroundings. Others, while unconscious, claim to have seen an intense glow. However, folks, all of this can be justified as hallucinations that arise when we are on the verge of death, not necessarily being tied to supernatural phenomena. Okay? The stage of putrefaction. The examples we mentioned are valid for those who barely died and returned, but what about those who die definitively? When it comes to an end, what happens? It is at this moment, folks, that a rather unpleasant and unusual procedure begins. The first thing that happens is the relaxation of all muscles. And when we say all, we include all muscles in the body, even the anal sphincter. When the individual is lifeless, the anus relaxes and, well, you can imagine the result. The content is expelled. Basically, everything contained in the body will eventually be released, including gases, urine, and even the air remaining in the lungs. Everything that needs to be ejected, the body will find a way to push out. This is why there are numerous reports from nurses who claim to have heard flatulence and strange noises coming from the deceased. It is not that they are returning, it is the body's own reaction to dying that causes this, expelling gases and waste. What's more, if a woman is pregnant at the time of death, she can even give birth. In this case, it is not the muscles contracting to expel the baby, but the internal gases that push it out. After this, as blood circulation is interrupted, the blood begins to pool in the lower parts of the body due to the force of gravity. This is why we observe purplish patches on the deceased. That is where the blood has concentrated. And if a man dies lying face down and remains that way for a prolonged period, this blood concentration can even cause a post-mortem erection. When the blood stops flowing, cells die, and bacteria begin to multiply. It is at this moment that the body begins to disintegrate. The skin starts to detach, and the next stage is decomposition, when microorganisms literally consume our body. That is when that repugnant odor is exhaled, which some describe as a mixture of rotten egg, waste, and carrion. This process of deterioration takes 8 to 12 years. That is, the body remains under the earth for a long time until it breaks down. The bones are the most resistant part, and can take up to 50 years to completely disappear. The hypotheses about the after. From a scientific point of view, folks, that is what happens to our physical structure. But do you think that's all there is to it? You die, turn into fertilizer, and that's it? What really happens after life ceases? We will now present the most widespread speculations regarding this. Hypothesis number 1, the threshold, or purgatory. The Irish philosopher George Berkeley was so captivated by this topic that he decided to perform an experiment to approach death and feel the NDE. He had the brilliant idea of hanging himself, with the agreement that his colleague would save him at the last minute. This individual maintained the existence of something between heaven and hell, a place that thinkers called the ether, today more commonly known as the threshold or purgatory. It would be a point of transition. You would be deceased, but you would not yet have reached the final destination. It would be a place to settle your scores, purify the essence, free yourself from bonds with people, material goods, and faults. After cleansing the soul and accepting death, you would be ready to go to heaven. Unfortunately, the only thing Berkeley confirmed with his experiment is that hanging yourself is painful and can be lethal. Even so, this theory of an intermediate space is accepted by many individuals. Hypothesis 2, the persistence of consciousness and reincarnation. Another thinker deeply intrigued by the theme of mortality and the soul was the French philosopher René Descartes. He articulated the idea of dualism, arguing that our spiritual essence, the soul, the consciousness, was fundamentally disconnected from and independent of our physical shell, the body. From this perspective, when the organism perished and decomposed, it remained inert and finite here on earth. However, the soul, being immaterial, would be free to continue its journey to another domain or plane of existence. Many religious and philosophical traditions throughout human history firmly embrace this notion of posthumous existence or life after death. The central concept is that our identity is not merely restricted to biological matter. On the contrary, we are endowed with a soul, a spirit, an immortal component that transcends biology. In this view, the body is seen as a temporary vehicle, a disposable element that fulfills its function on Earth, but the essence of consciousness is unwavering and eternal. And it is from this powerful principle of the immortal spirit that an even more fascinating and complex theory emerges: metempsychosis, or simply reincarnation. This idea posits that the soul not only survives the body, but seeks out and returns to a new body, beginning a new cycle of life. While some belief systems hold that the soul ascends to a specific place, like heaven, or remains wandering as a spirit, proponents of reincarnation see death as a mere gateway to a new birth. Reincarnation is a central pillar in various global doctrines. It is no wonder that it is a fundamental concept in ancient Eastern religions, such as Buddhism and Hinduism, where the cycle of rebirths, known as samsara, is governed by the law of karma. Likewise, in the West, Spiritism, the Spiritist doctrine, is also based on the premise of reincarnation as a mechanism for the soul's continuous evolution and learning. This theory offers an answer to injustice and suffering in the world, suggesting that the experiences of the present life are, in fact, results and lessons from past existences. Hypothesis 3, paradise and condemnation. As you could note, there are countless conjectures, but it is complex to arrive at a definitive answer. Beyond the fear of dying, many people are afraid of being sent to eternal fire. This is the idea that states that, if you were a virtuous individual in life, harmed no one and so on, you gain your access to heaven. Otherwise, if you strayed from the correct path, made mistakes, or were a person of questionable character, you will suffer in the fire of condemnation. There are countless visions about how hell is a place of suffering, and each belief has its own interpretation. The commitment is to practice good in the present. If something exists afterward, it will be a reflection of my present. In a way, if you are a malicious person, hell will manifest in your present life. A person who lives in wickedness will not enjoy a good existence. Regardless of what happens after death, since we are alive in the present, we must concern ourselves with our current behavior. We have to be good individuals, not cause harm, not be cheaters, and not out of fear of going to hell, but for the simple fact of living life. It is essential to have discernment. We are going to wrap up here. It was a pleasure having you here. Subscribe so you don't miss more videos like this, and help our work by leaving a like. This greatly strengthens the channel. Until next time, hugs.